Hello, this is Lego here. Welcome to a reaction video. And today we'll be entering the Sky Hybrid Wars with Two Legends, Project Hybrid by Godzilla Video. Yes, I know I'm a little bit late on this. I think this video came out a couple days ago. I'm a little bit late on this. I had some other videos I had to do, so sorry for being late. But with that said, let's react, shall we? Haven't seen it, so this should be interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, okay. I'll do it. I'll join this tournament. Well, let's go.
We'll have a same desire. I come alive, baby, in the night like wildfire. Falling in the beat, following the sky. Forever, gotta get better than very much. Fighting for the ones that are lost in the heart. Oh, I know it's hard to see the end. It's hard to see the end. I know it's hard to see the end.
I love that song. Oh my god, I love that intro.
Hello, everybody. I'm the Godzilla Reader, and yep, it's written in the title. I will be joining the Sky Hybrid War that was launched by Zen Reborn. Now, I know what you must be thinking right now. Didn't you say in your previous video in regards of Project Hybrid, and even your last one, that you wouldn't join any tournaments? And yeah, I said that, and honestly, I thought that that would be the case, especially after seeing what actually happened with Basilisk in regards of the original tournament. But after giving it some thought and then taking a deep look at the rules of the Sky Hybrid War, I thought to myself that maybe perhaps I could give it another shot with a new hybrid, which in terms of creation was actually pretty easier. In fact, the hybrids I have right now are surprisingly much more easier to create than Basilisk. Though just because it was easier doesn't mean that the hybrids are perfect, as I had to do a lot of double checks in regards of their components. Also, yes, you heard me right. I said hybrid in a plural sense, because I'm actually introducing two new hybrids for the tournament, as I will be facing against two hybrids in the form of Maggie and Volt. And looking at rule number 5 in regards of flocks and swarms, I think I know what I can create to face them. So, how about we get started, shall we? Roll the scientific music. Now, before we start, there is one thing that we need to understand in regards of both hybrids. And if you want to know more about their components, then I will recommend watching the original video where they're introduced. Link in the description. But essentially, Maggie is the speedster, while Volt is the one that hits hard. Both have different ways of distracting the enemy, while one of them proceeds to strike down. What I'm going to do is actually take the idea of a flying squirrel riding a Quetzalcoatlus, although with a bit of a twist in regards of the main genome for the flying
Oh
squirrel.
my god,
And
he
just
actually
like
did it.
that, I think we can
Oh,
begin with the first hybrid in its main
why
genome
is
being the god of all
way?
pterosaurs. Quetzalcoatlus was one of, if not the largest pterosaur to ever exist, standing up to 5 meters tall and having a wingspan of 11 meters. So it's a creature that not only dwarfs to humans, but it would also be a nightmare to encounter. However, despite its massive size, Quetzalcoatlus was still very capable of flying. And that would be pretty terrifying for a lot of creatures, because given how big this creature is, and its large beak as well, it was certainly a powerful predator that could easily kill any small critter. However, just because you're big doesn't mean that you're entirely invincible, especially when you're a flyer. So, in regards of flight speed, it is speculated that Quetzalcoatlus could have flown at speeds up to 128 kilometers per hour, and that it also traveled
What's that?
633 kilometers a day. 128 kilometers per hour is pretty fast. Granted, not the fastest speed in terms of flyers, but definitely impressive for a larger flyer like Quetzalcoatlus. However, if we were to take into account the stats of Maggie, most specifically our flight speed and stoop speed, yeah, this is next level speed right there. Now, granted, Quetzalcoatlus would be a pretty formidable opponent for almost every creature out there. However, given the types of hybrids that we're facing right now, this god of pterosaurs needs a huge upgrade. That's why the next genome that we're picking would definitely help our hybrid for agility and maneuverability. And for that, we're going to need the DNA of the bat. Bats are very special amongst flyers, and it all has to do with their wings. Unlike birds, bats have a special wing articulation which allow them to be very maneuverable and agile in the sky. The bat will contribute a better agility and maneuverability for our hybrid. That way, the hybrid will be fast enough to at least dodge the stoop of Maggie. And on top of that, it could also fly a bit faster than its main genome. Now, here's the thing. When I researched this particularity of the bat, it turns out that every bat species, or I guess I should say bats in general, have this special wing articulation which allows them to be pretty fast and agile in the sky. Even the larger flying foxes are said to be pretty agile. So, for the sake of the video, I will say that no matter which bat species I choose, it doesn't really matter because all of them have this special mechanism in their wings. And for that, I'll be choosing the brown bat, the most common of the bats, for its wings and wing articulation, which will help with agility and maneuverability. Alright, so now we move from agility to offense. And while yes, Quetzalcoatlus could certainly be devastating with its long beak, we need something else. And for that, we're going to take a bit of a page out of Basilisk components and use once again the Harpy Eagle. The Harpy Eagle will contribute 3 factors for our hybrid. For once, it will enhance the leg muscles of our hybrid, which would be pretty useful for taking down any opponents. Secondly, it would give the hybrid long and sharp talons, which would definitely be useful for gripping, especially since the Harpy Eagle has the longest talons of any bird of prey. And lastly, the Harpy Eagle will give excellent vision for our hybrid. While seemingly not the best eyesight ever, especially since the Bald Eagle is apparently the one who has the best ones out there, the Harpy Eagle still has exceptional eyesight. Which, aside from being better than our eyes, the Harpy Eagle can exceptionally see very far away.
The hobby.
And this would certainly help the hybrid from seeing either Volt or Maggie. However, sight isn't the only thing that we need for a hybrid.
Somebody's in music.
And no, we're not using smell because we do need the beak for offensive attacks.
Or
The next
balding
genome
eagle.
will help us
I'm
with
surprised they
hearing.
use like a balding.
And for
eagle.
that, we
Bald
need the
eagles
DNA
have like
of the
perfect
barn owl.
eyesight.
Barn owls are very special as they are said to have the best hearing out there amongst every species of owl. This will contribute an excellent hearing for our hybrid, and it will also allow him to at least detect either Maggie or Volt, though I'm guessing it will be Volt since he is the loudest of the duo. However, even with all of these attributes, there is one thing that we also need to take into account, and that is intelligence. Both Maggie and Volt are intelligent in their own rights, so we also need to have a contributor that would also serve intelligence for a hybrid. And for that, I'll be taking in the DNA of the Raven. Or is it the Crow? I don't know, but at any case, corvids in general are
Ravens
one of,
and
if not
crows
the
are
most
two
intelligent birds in the world.
different
The intelligence of corvids
species.
goes as
They
far
are
as
two different
problem-solving
species.
capabilities,
They look the same,
remembering,
but
and
they're not
even
the
learning.
same. I think that
This would certainly be
I think
useful for a
one's
hybrid,
bigger.
and it will also help with something else, although I'll talk about it later on when...
The crow and the raven are two different birds. They look the same. I think one of them has a longer beak. I believe. I think I'm not sure if it's like the raven that has the longer beak. I believe it's the raven that has the longer beak from the crow. But they are two different types of birds. I know that for a fact. That's the only bird fact I know. That they are two different type of birds. I believe they are two different type of birds. Like they are way two different type of birds. I believe the raven has the longer beak and the crow. One is curved, the other is not. One has a longer beak, and one of them is fuzzy. I believe one is also darker. From what I'm looking at from Google Images, the ravens and crows are two different types of birds, and the raven is bigger than the crow. So yeah, ravens have longer beaks, and crows are smaller than the raven. So they are two different types of birds. So I'm assuming you went for the raven because that's the one with the intelligence. The crow also has intelligence. They both have intelligence, but the raven's bigger than the crow, so it's probably smarter just because of its size. So yeah, the raven is bigger, and I believe that's a crow, not a raven. Or a raven. I think that's a raven. I'm not sure. They both look the same. But I know they're like two different birds because one is bigger. I think the raven's bigger than the crow. From what I looked at from Google Images, the raven is bigger than the crow. That's the difference between the birds. That the raven is bigger than the crow. That's the difference between the birds. That one's bigger than the other. So, yeah.
I get around to talking about the small partner of my Quetzalcoatlus hybrid. Now, as good as we're going right now, there is one more thing that we need to take into account in regards of both Maggie and Volt. Their beaks and talons are not exactly normal. You see, with the DNA of the vampire bat, this allows for iron distribution in both their beaks and their talons. So these would be pretty devastating in terms of strikes. So we need something to help with defense for a hybrid. And taking a bit of a page out of Volt, I'll be using the DNA of the Arapaima. This giant fish monster of the Amazon would definitely help our hybrid in terms of defense. In a similar fashion to Goji Center's Mortalodon, the Arapaima scales is composed of a fiber with a rocky outer plating that acts like armor. These scales are definitely going to be helpful for defense for our hybrid. However, we're only going to keep it in the body and not near the wings, as we do need the hybrid to fly. Alright, we're nearly done with the components of our hybrid.
You
All we
kind of
need is
also
one more
need the
contributor,
body to
and
have
this one would be useful for the beak. Now, I know what you're
feathers.
thinking.
Just
Isn't
saying.
the beak of Quetzalcoatlus
kinda
already
need
good
that.
enough for your hybrid? And well, yes, it
Because-
could be helpful.
You also need the body and the tail to have feathers. Not just saying scales won't make it fly, but it'll make it way harder for it to achieve speed. I don't know that much, but I know like feathers on the. It's not just the wings that need feathers. It also the tail also needs feathers. You also need feathers on the body because that also helps it achieve flight. It's not just the wings that help it achieve flight, it's body and feather and the tail. So yeah. I would have probably used a different type of animal besides scales. I don't know which one, but probably something with feathers.
I believe that this beak is much more efficient for stabbing. And for that, I'll use the DNA of the blue heron. Blue herons have a pretty efficient beak, as it is long and pointy, like an harpoon. Aside from using their beaks for catching prey, their beak is so sharp that it can literally stab their prey, from fish to mammals and even other birds. And it's also thanks to their special neck mechanism.
Oh, poor baby.
This mechanism allows the heron to lunge its neck forward in a pretty fast movement, which is fast enough to even prevent any prey from even reacting to its presence. The blue heron will contribute to the beak and the neck mechanism, which will give the hybrid a pretty devastating attack. Now, if you're curious about whether or not the neck mechanism would actually work for a creature whose main genome is Quetzalcoatlus, here's the thing. Quetzalcoatlus had a beak that was similar to storks, another bird that has a pretty long neck like the heron, and it's speculated that Quetzalcoatlus could have hunted small creatures in a similar fashion to these types of birds. Now, at the moment, it's only a theory, but it's not far-fetched to think that Quetzalcoatlus or any other giant pterosaurs could have hunted in a similar fashion to storks, herons, and stormbills. Alright, we finally got over all the components of this first hybrid. So let's introduce it right now. Ladies and gentlemen, meet...
Heart of the cards. Guide me.
Oh, Mills is in this video.
Just the card we needed. It's now or never, Pharaoh. It's our move. Prepare to face a beast like no other. Now, arise.
Oh, Niels is in this video.
Zeus, the god of blue skies.
Deus Caerelus Caelerum, meaning the blue god of the skies. But you can call him Iseus. Iseus has the DNA of
Iseus.
7 different
Wow.
creatures, which all
I haven't
contribute
had trouble
different
pronouncing it.
attributes for the hybrid. And on top of that, he is also pretty big. When compared to a human, the statistic goes like this. Now, I do want to bring up the fact that the statistic that I will show could be essentially wrong. So that's just me being bad at math, essentially. Iseus has a height of 5 meters tall. He has a length of 10 or 11 meters. He has a weight of 544 kilograms, a wingspan of either 12 or 13 meters, a flight speed of 129 or 130 kilometers per hour, and a running speed of 35 miles an hour. Aside from his size, Iseus has a long and sharp harpoon-like beak, which is efficient for stabbing thanks to its fast neck strike from the blue heron's neck mechanism. At the same time, its wings, which are from the bat, not only allow Iseus to fly a bit faster, but also give him the ability to basically make swift turns and basically be more agile and maneuverable in the sky. His leg muscles are enhanced thanks to the Harpy Eagle DNA, and he also has sharp talons which would be efficient for gripping and also taking down any sort of opponent. And he also has great vision. Aside from that, Iseus has a great hearing from the barn owl, great intelligence from the raven, and great durability from the arapaima. So yeah, needless to say, the blue god of the skies is ready for flying combat. Wait a second, reader. I think you're forgetting something. What the? That's a familiar voice right there. Yeah, that's me. Scorpia, what do you want? Well, I'm here to just tell you that I think you should consider having 2 more contributors for your hybrid. 2 more contributors? Yeah, for venom and disease resistance. Wait, what? Why? As far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure that Maggie and Volt aren't venomous. Nor do I think that they carry any diseases whatsoever. True, but remember, you're not the only one participating in this tournament. And if by any chance your hybrids reach the toppest rank, there's a possibility that they might end up fighting other hybrids. And maybe some of them are venomous. Oh, right. He did say that there could be a fight scene between the top ranked hybrids. Okay. Might as well do that. So, to make sure that Iseus is immune to venom and diseases, I'll be taking the DNA of both the opossum and the turkey vulture. The opossum for its venom immunity, and the turkey vulture for its disease immunity. So we went from 7 to 9 contributors. Goody. But yeah, that was the first hybrid. Now let's go to the second one. And you know what? Just for the heck of it, let's introduce this second hybrid already. So, ladies and gentlemen, meet
Oh my god! You use a flying lizard?
Parva Sonus Draconis,
You use a
which means
fly-
little sound dragon. But
You used the flying lizard! You used the flying lizard! Yes! Oh my god! When I made that voice, when I voiced it, when I made that freaking, when I made that chat and voice, when I posted that post in the Discord server about a flying lizard, I didn't think you would actually make a flying lizard hybrid. You made a flying lizard. A flying lizard! I love this. I love this idea. The flying lizard gets his chance to shine. Oh my god. A flying lizard.
you can call him Orochi. So remember when I said that I had a little twist in regards to the flying squirrel? Well, that's the twist. I ain't even using a flying squirrel. I'm using, arguably speaking, one of the most underrated gliders out there, the Draco lizard. The Draco lizard is one of the few rarest lizards to actually fly, or in this case, glide. And they do this thanks to their wings, which are actually ribs that stick out from the body, and they are covered in skin, which basically allow the lizard to literally glide. But of course, this Draco lizard needs to be upgraded so that it becomes efficient for combat, and therefore, contributors are to be chosen. And these are the contributors for Orochi. So aside from using the DNA of the Draco lizard for the base genome, I'm also using the DNA of the chameleon for vision and the eyes. According to what I researched, it is said that chameleons have the best vision out of every species of lizards, and that makes sense considering how they use their eyes. However, in order for this to work, I think the best solution is to literally take the eyes of the chameleon and literally stick it in the hybrid. Chameleons have eyes that move independently, which
I didn't
allows
even
them to
notice
look literally everywhere around their surrounding. And this would be efficient for detecting both Maggie and Volt. As for which species of chameleon I'm using, I'll be using the DNA of the Rampholian chameleon, one of the more smaller individuals of the species. Now, if you're looking at the design of Orochi right now and then notice a little sketch that is above him, you can see that the sketch itself showcases the teeth that Orochi has. And it's not just any teeth, it's the teeth of a python. And the python that I use for it is the pygmy python. Now, just from the name, it's pretty easy to understand that the pygmy python is definitely one of the more smaller individuals of the species. However, even with its
I'm
small
surprised
size,
you didn't use like
it
a.
still has some
No,
pretty sharp
I was gonna
teeth.
say Burmese
In
python,
fact, according to what
mostly
I researched,
because
getting bitten by a
bite
small
does
python
hurt
is a lot more
from a
painful
Burmese
than getting
python.
bitten by a large one. Returning to the
They
design,
do have
if you
like
look
big
closely at
fangs. You could have
Orochi's
just made them
front and back
smaller.
claws, you can see that they
But then
are pretty
again,
sharp.
the
That's
size of the
because I used
Burmese
once
python
again the
bite
DNA of the
is
brown bat.
probably not gonna
Now,
hybrid.
look at those claws. Don't they look pretty sharp? Normally, the rear hooked claws of the bat helps it in terms of hanging upside down. However, using this feature would allow the claws of our hybrid to be extended and to basically give it a better grip in terms of climbing. Now, aside from using the chameleon for vision, we're also going to use another lizard for another sense, and this one being hearing. And for that, I'll be using the DNA of the Delma Pax. This legless gecko from Australia, if I'm not wrong, is said to have the best hearing amongst
That's
every
a
species of
gecko?
lizard. And that would definitely be efficient for hearing any
I
near
thought that was a
enemies.
snake.
And it would
That's a
also be a
gecko?
nice combo with Isius, with both of them being able to hear and see their approaching enemies. And just like Isius, I also gave Orochi two other contributors,
That's a
which would be
gecko? I thought it was
efficient
a
for
snake.
venom and disease resistance.
Okay.
In regards of venom, I took the DNA of the Australian skink, who is said to have basically evolved a way to literally be immune to snake venom. Or to be more specific, it has evolved a way to be more resistant to snake venom, because using the word immune on that is a bit far-fetched. And in terms of disease immunity, I took the DNA of the western fence lizard, this one being particularly immune to diseases, and more specifically, it is immune to a disease called Lyme disease. Alright, two contributors remaining, and these two in particular would definitely help out the teamwork aspect for both Isios and Orochi. The Raven strikes back once again, giving Orochi a similar intelligence to his more larger partner. However, intelligence isn't the only thing that the Raven contributes. It would also contribute the teamwork aspect for the both of them. It has been confirmed through research and even some experiments that ravens actually can work together to get something done. And when they get something done, they surely get it done. However, for this to work, communication is the key. Ravens do communicate with each other through a variety of calls. However, this kind of leads to a problem. Orochi isn't exactly a lizard that makes calls that are similar to a raven. However, this can be fixed with the last remaining contributor, that being the Tokay Gecko. Now, if you're someone that watched the Wildcrats, then you will know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, listen to this.
Yeah, I think they have some of those in Kentucky.
That's right. The gecko is one of the few lizards in the world to actually make vocalization sounds. And unsurprisingly, they make these sounds for communication. The Tokay gecko isn't only used for its vocalization, but it's also used for the fact that it is the loudest of the geckos. So Isius would definitely hear him no problem.
I'm just kidding.
And just like that, that makes 9 contributors, just like Isius. And in regards of Orochi's stats, well, it kind of looks like this. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any information in regards of height, weight, and wingspan, but I did manage to find a length. And in terms of him being a male Draco lizard hybrid, he would have a length of 195 millimeters in length. And in terms of gliding speed, which I was surprisingly was able to find that, Orochi would glide at speeds between 5.2 or 7.6 meters per second. But in terms of weight, I'm pretty sure that Orochi wouldn't be that heavy, given how small he is. And in terms of running speed, I'm pretty sure that, like any small lizard, Orochi would be pretty fast. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say in terms of this second hybrid. Hello, it's me, Godzilla Reader from the future, and I'm leaving this little recording here because I forgot to write something in regards of one of the contributors, and that is the brown bat. Now, if you're looking at the image of the brown bat, then see what is written there, that being brown bat extending the front claws with the rear hooked claws of the bat. Yeah, it turns out I forgot to write down that aside from his front claws, Orochi's back claws are also extended. So yeah, just want to clarify that it's not only the front claws of Orochi that are extended, but also his back claws. So yeah, basically the front and back at the same time. So yeah, just leaving that out. Alright, now that I got around introducing my two new hybrids, let's see what is their strategy against Team Mimic.
Mimic!
So for a starter, if you're wondering what is the name of my team, I will call my team Team Mythical. And secondly, according to the third episode of the Skyribor and from Zane himself, Volt and Maggie have a literal strategy to take down large pterosaurs. And it goes like this.
Team Mimic can deploy their usual anti-Azdarkid strategies, avoiding the head while aiming for the weak spots. A challenge to take down, but can still be taken down.
Now, taking into account this strategy from Team Mimic, let's see what Team Mythical can pull out in terms of their own strategy. But first, let's take a look at their physical capabilities. The main weapons of Isius are going to be his harpoon-like beak and his long, sharp talons. And given how big he is, it's most likely logical to assume that a strike from him would be pretty devastating. Orochi's main weapons are going to be his sharp teeth and maybe his rear hooked claws, even though they were mostly designed for gripping when climbing, but I guess he could use them if he could. But despite those, both his bite and I guess his slash from his claws would mostly be a flesh wound. It would hurt and be painful, but it wouldn't exactly be all that devastating towards Maggie and Volt. However, this will be explored when I get around talking about their strategy. So, right from the bat, it's pretty clear that between the two, Isius would certainly be the one to do the most devastating damage, due to his large size and weaponry. And if I were to be honest, I believe that a strike from his beak would be deadly enough to KO Maggie and Volt, especially with the neck mechanism of the Blue Heron, which would definitely be a deadly strike. Now, granted, Team Mimic have their own durabilities. In the case of Volt, it's his fish scales from the Rainbow Trout, and for Maggie, it's her thick feathers. However, this wouldn't mean anything when the beak and the neck mechanism of Isius is literally from a bird that hunts fish on a daily basis. And other birds aren't exactly off the menu either. However, trying to get close and personal towards Volt and Maggie could prove to be a difficult task, especially if Team Mimic decides to use their strategy on Isius. Even though Volt seems to be the slower of the duo, Maggie is just way too fast for Isius to even try to catch. And even though Isius has a great durability from the Arapaima scales, a hammer strike from Volt or a stoop strike from Maggie could still prove to be devastating. Thankfully, the wing articulation of the bat would allow Isius to make swift turns, which would be impossible with bird wings, and allow him to at least dodge Maggie's stoop. However, the biggest help that Isius would get in this confrontation would be his little brother, Orochi. While both Isius and Orochi have a great vision and hearing, Orochi would definitely have the superior vision, thanks to his chameleon eyes that can move independently at every direction. He would be able to detect both Maggie and Volt, and once he does, he would definitely warn his big brother of their presence. Let's not forget that both of them are intelligent, and they have ways of communicating with each other. And this is the part where we reach their strategy. A strategy which I have dubbed Dragon Kite. And it goes like this. After detecting the presence of both Volt and Maggie, Isius would try to get close and personal with one of them, probably Volt as he is the slow flyer of the duo. However, upon trying to do so, Team Mimic then proceeds to unleash their strategy on them. However, that isn't taking into account that riding this blue god of the skies is a small little dragon. And upon being close and personal towards Team Mimic, Orochi launches and lands on either one of them, depending on who is much closer to Isius. And whoever has him, they wouldn't enjoy what comes next, as Orochi would literally make his way to their face and bite and possibly slash their eyes. Not only will this be extremely painful, but it will also give the opportunity for Isius to strike them down with his beak. Now, there is other ways for the tactic to work. If Maggie were to do a stoop on Isius, then Orochi would warn him, and Isius would then use his swift turns to dodge the stoop. And upon seeing that Maggie is now under them, Orochi would take the opportunity to jump off Isius and get on Maggie. If it were to be Volt, then Isius would have to follow him and also be above him, so that it would give a perfect angle for Orochi to glide down and get on him. Now, the goal of this tactic isn't just to distract either one of them, but to also handicap them by literally having Orochi bite both eyes of whoever is on and literally blind them. This will be a huge advantage for Team Mythical, because aside from giving Isius the opportunity to strike down whoever is blind, but that would also mean that the teamwork for Team Mimic wouldn't be all that great if one of them is literally blind. Now, yes, I am aware that Team Mimic have other senses they can use, like, for example, Maggie has a smell from the Argentavis, and Volt has echolocation from the Vampire Bat. Though, will it still help them if they can't see anything? Besides, even if they were in their guards, Isius would still be pretty careful about it and calculate his attack on them. Now, as cool as this strategy is, there is still some major flaws about it. And I think the biggest flaw about this strategy is the fact that one of the members of Team Mythical is kind of putting himself at risk of death. While being a good glider, there are still chances for Orochi to miss either one of them, or worse, get caught by them. There is also the fact that even if he doesn't jump off Isius, there is still a chance for Team Mimic to detect him. Although, if they were able to catch him off of Isius, I don't think that would be that possible, since for once, Orochi's eyes can move independently, so he will literally see either Maggie or Volt try to catch him. And also, catch him would also be difficult, since aside from being small, he's also pretty fast. In fact, if they were to attempt to catch him, they could leave an opening for not only him, but also Isius. There is also the fact that this strategy can only work with one of the members of Team Mimic. And considering the situation, a lot of stuff could happen. Like, let's say, if Orochi was on Volt and managed to blind them, that will leave Isius to deal with Maggie, which could be a difficult task because, again, she's pretty freaking fast. And even if they do manage to take down Volt, that would only leave Maggie, which, again, that will be probably difficult for the both of them because, again, she's pretty freaking fast. However, if it's the other way around, then that will be a huge advantage for Team Mythical, because if Orochi manages to blind Maggie, that would leave a huge opportunity for Isius to not only take her down, but also leave a Volt to them. And even without Orochi's help, I believe that Isius would have no problem taking down Volt. However, if they want to take down Maggie first, then they'll have to work extremely hard for it. There is also the fact that even if Orochi gets on either Volt or Maggie, there's still a possibility that either Volt or Maggie gets him off. And that would lead to him gliding down and potentially getting caught by either one of them. Now, granted, he could still call for his big brother for help, although that would also leave him vulnerable to both Maggie and Volt. And that's pretty much all. And I think I got to say everything I needed to say about these new pairs of hybrids that I created. And yeah, that's pretty much my submission for the Sky Hoverboard. Team Mythical, composed of the Blue God of the Skies, Isius, and the Little Sound Dragon, Orochi. And just like that, we've reached the end of the video. And gotta say, I had a lot of fun working on this one. And honestly, I would have never expected to make another one of these videos like this. Like I said in the beginning of this video, and even in some previous videos, I never really intended in participating in another tournament in regards to the Great Amber War, especially seeing that, well, again, the last one that I tried to participate with Basilisk didn't really end well because seems like my submission got ignored. But at the same time, creating hybrids is a difficult process, so I didn't really feel like going through that process once again. However, after giving it some thought and also currently following the Sky Hoverboards, I felt like that perhaps I could give it another shot, and ultimately I pretty much contradicted myself by saying that creating hybrids is difficult because the two new hybrids that I just created were surprisingly easy. But yeah, I'm pretty proud with how Isius and Orochi turned out. And honestly, they're probably some of my best hybrids that I created in my entire collection so far. What originally was supposed to be only 4 hybrids has now increased into 6 hybrids. Or more specifically 7, because I do have a Bellas, which Goji Headquarters gave away. Now, for those wondering why the team name for the 2 hybrids is Team Mythical, well, essentially when I was going through creating them, I kind of wanted to give off a mythological theme to it. As in, the 2 hybrids that I was creating basically looked like creatures that were straight out from mythology. And it's also something that was pretty noticeable in their names. Since the main genome of Isius is literally a pterosaur that was named after an Aztec god, it would be logical that Isius basically had a god motif to his entire creation. And the funny thing is, aside from his scientific name being literally the blue god of the skies, his name Isius is actually a combination between 2 names, Icarus and Zeus. Basically, what happened is that both Neo Cyber and Gojirex proposed the names for me, and Neos was the one who proposed Zeus, while Gojirex proposed Icarus. And since both names were pretty good, I decided to just fuse it into one name. And that's how Isius came to be. As for Orochi's name being, well, Orochi, I think this is pretty self-explanatory, especially since Orochi does go for a more dragon motif. But yeah, those are the hybrids that I created right after Basilisk. And I'm looking forward to see them in the tournament of the Sky Harbor War, and hope that they reach at least the highest rank, either Legendary or the Winner rank. However, if they manage to ring the Apex rank, I'll be happy. Now, before ending this, I do want to give up some updates in regards of Project Hybrid, and also leave out some shoutouts to the people that truly deserve it. So let's go with the updates first. So in regards of the 3 hybrids that I revealed in Basilisk's original video, you must be wondering what is happening with them. Well, the Rabbit hybrid is actually finished in terms of design and contributors, so he's ready to go. However, a video on him won't be happening for a while now, especially since I'm currently doing the hybrid face-off as well, and I do also want to work on my other stuff. Like, I'm not saying that I'll want to stop making videos on hybrids. I love making these videos, and I certainly do want this trend to continue till, I guess, we reach an ending point. I'm just saying that the Rabbit hybrid video won't be happening for a while. As for the other hybrids, the Orca hybrid and the Condor hybrid, not gonna lie, these 2 were quite difficult to create in terms of contributors. Of like, yeah, which contributor I had to choose for them, but I think I'm getting somewhere in them. Speaking of Goji Headquarters, last month, if I'm not wrong, he decided to give away more of his hybrids to other people. And one of those hybrids that he gave away was his 2.0 version of his very first hybrid, Avis. And while the reason for this is unknown, at least as far as I'm aware, I do think it's a bit of a shame that he's giving away what it's essentially the 2.0 version of his first hybrid. But despite this, I decided that I will be the one to essentially take in Avis, the 2.0 version, into my facility, and she is now part of my hybrid collection. And now that makes 8 hybrids.
Hey,
Don't you worry, Goji headquarters. I'll take very good care of her. In fact, her, Isius, and Orochi are getting along pretty well. Shout out to Zane Reborn for essentially making this tournament. And I gotta say, the Sky Harbor War is by far one of the greatest tournaments to be ever created. Like, it's interesting, it's fun, and a lot of the creativity I've seen from the competitors are really, really good. So yeah, shout out to my good friend Neo Cyber for coming up with the name, that cool Yu-Gi-Oh sequence when introducing Isius, and these cool-looking cards featuring both Isius and Orochis as Yu-Gi-Oh monsters, I guess. I'll leave Zane and Neos' channel in the description so that you could check them out. Shout out to GojiRex28 for also coming up with the name and essentially having me fuse both Icarus and Zeus to make Isius. Shout out to Vamdecon for doing that lovely sketch featuring Team Mythical doing that one meme that trended a while back ago. Excellent. And finally, shout out to Bootytron. Oh god, that name. But yeah, shout out to them for helping out with some of the factors in terms of Isius contributors. And to conclude, I'll show you guys some screenshots that I took of one of Goji Headquarters' video featuring Avis 2.0. And I'll show you guys some of our contributors and essentially our purpose, especially since the original video is no longer there. Yeah, it was deleted, so yeah. I'll just show you guys with what I was able to take. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I'm the Godzilla Reader, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye bye!
oh, cool. And wait, I put that. That was good. I do think that the scales on the Tailsaw hybrid, particularly the fish scales, might not help it achieve flight, because that might make it a little bit difficult on the Tailsaw hybrid not to make it achieve flight. I guess I don't know. I do think it's a cool hybrid. It looks cool. But I do think the fish scales should have been traded for like a different type of feathered bird, because I do think the fish scales would make it a little bit less durable and also a less maneuverable in flights. They might make it a little bit slower from achieving its speed. I'm not an expert or anything, but I'm pretty sure all birds need to have like feathers, or at least I don't know. But then again, Quetzalcoatl also had scales, but he also had feathers, so that's debatable. I don't know. I do like the flying lizard thing. That made me laugh. A flying lizard, a flying lizard. That's peak. I love that. But with that said, this is NLG sign off, and remember, stay big, because of Rita fans or Sky Hybrid War fans. I don't know what I say here. Bye.